Hi guys, my name is Helen Matura, and today I'll be showing you how to get an everyday makeup look. You ready, model? Alright, so my model skin is already moisturized. I have some eye patches under here, getting her under eyes prepped and hydrated. I am going to start with the eyebrows. I'd like to start from the top and work my way down in the face. I am starting off with some eyebrow gel. This is definitely a must-have because it's going to be able to tame eyebrow hairs while adding a little bit of color. This is from Anastasia Beverly Hills in the shade Chocolate. So you want to slightly brush the hairs both upwards and back to kind of create a guideline and shape. On top of that, I'm going to be going in with a powder. I enjoy using a brow palette, so that way it gives me a little bit more options to work with. Make sure you're brushing the hairs out. This is going to create a more softer eyebrow appearance while still giving her that fullness that she's looking for. I start with the lighter shade, creating a guide, still maintaining the integrity of her eyebrow shape, but we're just adding and filling. Taking that darker shade on my angled brush and just adding that to the tail of the brow. Using soft hair-like strokes to create that fullness. Same thing on the other brow. This is going to ensure that the eyebrows not only stay in place, but also remain full throughout the day. I'm going to be using the P. Louise base. This is going to work as an eyebrow eraser, so you can actually apply this underneath the brows, but also as an eyeshadow base, so the eyebrows can last. You want to use a flat synthetic brush. I'm actually using it on a palette. I like to work a couple shades lighter than the skin tone. This will ensure a highlighted effect. Okay. Tapping motions right underneath. This is also definitely a must-have because it's going to act like an eraser and give you that nice sharp clean line underneath the brows. Tapping motions, you want to put this all over the entire eye. Same thing on the other eye. You can use your finger as a guide to help get that angle. You want to use a fluffy synthetic brush to tap off any excess and also blend properly. That way you get a nice even coat. tapping motions, we want to use that so we can keep the coverage. You don't want to blend it away because then it'll just move the product. So when you're working in layers, you want to do tapping, gentle motions on the client. Now this will ensure that our eyeshadow not only will pop, but it will also stand out and last long. Going right into our eyeshadow palette. Today, I will be featuring the James Charles palette with Morphe. We're gonna focus on neutral tones, so we're gonna actually use this middle layer and probably some other options as well, but we're gonna keep it neutral since this is an everyday eyeshadow look. I'm gonna be taking a fluffy tapered brush. This is gonna help us get right in the crease to define it. And I'm gonna go in with this shade here. So a little bit of an orange shade. So depending on the looks that you wanna do, you always wanna focus around 3 shades. Something lighter than your skin tone, something darker than your skin tone, and then something in between. Focusing on that outer corner, we're just tapping to build that color. Since my client does have hooded lids, we're gonna accentuate the crease by creating a new one. You wanna focus on the outer third, tapping motions. Repeat on the other eye. Tapping, tapping. We're gonna use a separate brush. A little bit more softer, still kind of pointed, but not as condensed as the other one, right? We're gonna take a lighter shade. We're gonna use this to diffuse the shade that we already applied. All right. This is how we get to blend our colors while still keeping the intensity of it, right? So we're just using this to tap right over that yellow, that orange. And after it's added on, small circular motions to blend it out. On the other eye. Back in with the original brush. Without any extra product on, we're just gonna blend those 2 colors together. Within the blending, you are gonna lose the intensity, and that's okay. You're just gonna go back and forth between both shades until they marry each other and look nice and blended. Right. Soft windshield wiper motions. Of course, this is why we use the base, so that way everything sticks, but is also easy to blend. Small pressure, you want to hold the brush farthest away from the ferrule. This is the ferrule, farthest away, so that way you get a nice even blend without looking too harsh. Right? And take that same first brush, and we're gonna go ahead and dip it into the darker shade. This time we're only gonna focus it on the outer portion of the eye and going a little lower. Again, tapping motions. gonna create that depth. That first brush, no product on it, and we're just gonna blend everything together. Go as high or low as you please. Now we're gonna do a term called cutting the crease, where we're gonna accentuate the lid space by adding that same primer that we did in the beginning, which is the P. Louise. I'm using in the base 0.5. With that same shader brush that we apply it with, that flat brush. Just gonna go ahead and reapply that. You want your client's head to be tilted towards you so that way you're able to see the entire crease. Again, you can use your finger as a guide. But we're just tapping this in. Take your time, that way you get a nice clean edge. Unless you're going for a softer look, then you would be able to use a softer brush. A more fluffier brush to create the same look. Before we go in with our lid color, I'm just going to reinforce what we did on the actual crease, which is going in with our orange shade. And just reinforcing the same kind of ombre effect. For the lid today, I chose to focus on this gorgeous Korean eyeshadow palette from Kaja. I like to apply a shimmer because I feel like it brings extra dimension to an already hooded eye. Of course, feel free to add a matte shade if you'd like. And I'm taking a flat natural hair bristle brush to go ahead and add that to the lid. Stamping motions, because remember we have a lot of layers underneath and we don't want to disrupt them, so we're stamping. You can apply the same exact technique with all matte shades if you prefer a matte. My client just requested a summery, glowy makeup. Same thing, repeating on the other eye. brushes. I like to use the edge of the brush to go ahead and give me that defined line that we're looking for. Same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and add that orange. And we're all just doing is creating a shade, right? So by using a lighter shade in the lid, it's gonna accentuate the lid. Being that my client has a hooded eye, that's what we want. We want the lid to appear larger. And we want to close off the end and give her that shape. That's why we're adding that darker shade to the outside. You can go back in and smoke out the outer lid if you're looking for a bit of a darker shade. And again, going back to the lid. Tapping motion so we keep the shape. I like to go back in with that first brush and just kind of diffuse the edges. No extra product on it, you're just diffusing. With all the blending, sometimes the shadows can kind of lose themselves. We are going to move right on to the face. Using a primer stick. This is from Josie Maran. It's an argan oil stick infused with a little bit of Specs. This is going to close off her pores, but it's also going to help have the makeup last and also hydrate her skin. I like to take a little bit of a wipe. Open and look up for me, please. That way I can clean out any fallout that we had. This is also a good way to actually bring the eyeshadow in upwards motion. Skin is ready. So we're gonna go ahead and take that stick and we're gonna focus it only where she needs it. Porous areas tend to be around the nose, chin area, and a little on the forehead. Taking a sponge, which I'm actually wetting with a little bit of setting spray. Make sure that's all melted into the skin. You want to make sure your skin is super hydrated and prepped, because you will be adding layers. The same way we prep the eyes, you definitely want to pay the same attention to the skin. Right? My client already stated to me that her skin is on the drier side, so we are actually going to be adding a little bit of oil as her primer. This is Skin Dope by Josie Maran. I'm just adding a few dots to her face just to hydrate and act as a base underneath. Making sure that gets absorbed into the skin. Perfect. On top of that, I will be adding the Tatcha primer, the silk canvas. This is going to ensure that it's also more smooth and the foundation is going to last. So different methods for everyone. Every skin type will have its own, but you will choose what works best for you or your client. Focusing on the T-zone area. Well, my client already stated that she gets more porous, and then we're just gonna smooth that out. Right. Don't forget underneath. Perfect. Now that her skin is prepped, we're gonna go ahead with foundation. Today I chose to use a combination. I personally like to do combinations because I find that most people have combination skin. So I'm gonna use the Even Better from Clinique, and this is in the shade WN54. And then from Anastasia, I'm using her foundation stick in the shade Warm Ivory. Okay. We're gonna apply that to our palette. And slowly build up the coverage. My client is looking for a medium to full coverage, and that's what we're gonna offer for her. This shade is a little bit warmer than her skin tone, but we're gonna use it to warm up her skin because she wants a summer bronzy look. I like to focus it on the T-zone area first. This is usually where most clients actually need the coverage. And then we're gonna work our way outwards. That way we're not using too much product, but we're still giving her the coverage that she's looking for. Okay, again, stippling motion so we don't disrupt the layers that we already applied underneath. Okay. And I'm using a fluffy synthetic brush. This one's from Sonia Kashuk. And we're slowly building up that product. We're gonna go in with a sponge applicator to blend everything out, but you still don't want a concentrated amount of product on the client's face. Okay. Now that that's applied, going with that sponge, I'm just picking up a little excess product. Open and look up for me. I like to apply a little underneath the eyes just to get it prepped for that concealer. And again, stippling motions. Make sure you're going underneath the jawline so that way we avoid that line of demarcation. Once you've got a nice even layer, we're gonna go ahead and brighten up her face using that foundation stick. Focusing on the highest points of the face. I personally like to do a regular foundation and then Anastasia stick foundation on top because this is gonna give you more coverage without feeling too heavy on the skin. Over that, we're gonna go in with her concealer. I like to work in layers. Little goes a long way, so we're gonna use the Josie Maran Vibrancy Full Coverage Concealer. This is in the shade Light, and again, we're only gonna focus it where we need it, right? So we're creating dimension, and we're just applying it in the highest points of her face, right? Going in with our sponge, I'm just gonna add a little bit more demonstration. Very, very light pressure. Again, so we don't disrupt what we got going on underneath. And you want to work, again, going upward. We want to create a shape for the face. Right? Everyone wants lifted, young, hydrated skin, and that's what we're going to achieve with makeup. Keeping that same triangle shape. We're just going to concentrate it in that area. Whatever's left over, we're just going to drag it outwards again to avoid that line of demarcation. Open and look up for me. Make sure the skin is properly hydrated, so that way once you're adding all these layers, it's not going to actually cling on to dry places, right? So prepping is key, and obviously choosing foundations that are right for your skin type. But you can definitely not go wrong by using two formulations, something creamy and then something a little bit more thicker consistency on top. Now that we have our base on, we're gonna get to contouring, which is most people's favorite part. I'm gonna just use a little bit of Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define. It's just a tad bit darker than my client's shade because you obviously don't wanna go too overboard. And we're gonna take this with the same foundation brush, mixing it a little bit with that foundation that we applied, just to create a nice warm bronzy effect. Again, at the hollows of her cheeks, a little bit on the side of the forehead. This is gonna just create that dimension, right? Definitely a must-have because naturally we do not have a flat face, so we want to encourage those same hollow parts when applying makeup. Taking that same sponge, we're just gonna marry everything together. Definitely want to always contour because again, the face naturally has hollows. You want to create that when doing makeup. So you can do it in a contour stick. Anastasia actually offers a contour kit. That way you can have everything all in one. So again, depending on your preference, you have options. Blend, blend, blend. Blending is key. You want everything to look seamless. You don't want to know where the contour begins and or ends. Same thing for the rest of the products, right? Unless you're going for a harsh look, you always want to blend. Blending is key. Right? We're done with that. Now we're going to set everything. We're going to add a little bit of powder. This is just going to ensure that everything stays in place, right? My client is on the drier side, so we're just going to go in with a tiny pinch of translucent powder. Open and look up for me. With a fluffy brush, we're just going to tap that on, just to ensure everything stays in place. focusing on the areas that tend to get the most oily, which is usually the T-zone. And now everyone's favorite part, highlighting. Taking the Anastasia Glow Cake in the shade Gleam. My client does have a little bit of a pink undertone to her skin, so we're gonna go ahead and bring those out. Taking a fluffy brush, we're just gonna focus those on the highest points of the face. Again, we're just playing with dimensions and textures. We want to do this. We want to play with different products on the face to achieve the look that you want. You want to use creams, powders, different textures, because it's going to gradually come together to give you the look that you want. Again, focusing on the highest points of the face. I'm mixing Mimosa and Starburst. I'm just slowly tapping that on. I like to go back in with the brush that we applied the powder, and again, just marry everything together. If you notice, everything is all about layering, going back and forth and diffusing everything. Okay. Take a little bit. I'm gonna actually go in with the dark Anastasia kit. I'm gonna take that contour kit from Anastasia. I'm just taking the more cooler tone just to emphasize her contour. Very ever so lightly. Since we already worked with cream products, we're just using the powder to reinforce what we already did. Before I move on to lips, I'm gonna actually go back in her brows. This time I'm gonna use a brow pomade just to give it a little bit more of an accent, a little bit more definition on her brows. I'm just using this at the edges just to create a nice sharp brow. Go ahead, just gonna add a tad bit of mascara. I'm gonna finish off the eye with a little bit of a smoky effect. Look down for me. I'm gonna clean up that under eye with a little bit of concealer, and then we are going to add a bit of eyeshadow. This is just gonna accentuate exactly what we did on the top. We're gonna apply that towards the bottom. Right, So same eyeshadows we did on the top, we are going to actually take to the bottom. Super simple process. So we're gonna start off with that yellow. Open and look up. Smaller brush, and then go ahead and dip into that orange. You want it closest to the lash line, and then just blend it side to side. Using warm tones like this will actually bring out your eyes, so don't be afraid to put color on the bottom lash line. And then we're gonna actually dip into this burgundy shade. A little bit more smokiness. This is an easy way to convert your look from day to night as well. If you wanted to add the black as well, that will give it a little bit more of a smoky effect as well. Okay. And who can live life without shimmer? I love a good shimmer, so we're gonna actually bring out our inner tear duct and add a little shimmer to that. Tip of the nose. Right. Make sure we clean up any fallout. And add a little mascara. For lips, we're gonna keep it neutral. Ooh. So we're gonna go with Anastasia liquid lipstick in the shade Veronica. I like to apply it with a brush to get a more precise application. To create an ombre effect, I'm actually gonna go in with a lighter shade. And I'm gonna go in with Pure Hollywood. Just adding that in the center. Will create a nice ombre effect. And give the lips some dimension. Flag your lips for me, please. You can choose to add a gloss to this. Since this is a liquid lipstick, it is not going to budge, which I personally prefer. Not for me. Perfect. And there you have the final look. Turn to the camera for me. Ooh.